All right, what is going on, everyone? And welcome back to the Mets Weekly Podcast as we are live at this very moment on YouTube and on X to recap the Mets versus Padres series, as well as the latest breaking news and rumors in New York Mets land. But before we get into that, I want to remind everyone to subscribe to the Mets Weekly YouTube channel for new episodes of our show that are recorded live after every single series of games during the regular season. For those of you watching or listening on playback, you want to join the conversation in the future, make sure to turn on those post notifications to know when we go live. For those of you in the live chat right now, we love reading your comments, your questions, your concerns, all that great stuff. If you feel like you're being ignored, you're not being ignored. You're just being starred throughout the show. So we'll try to keep the flow of the conversation going. Make sure to follow Mets Weekly on X and on TikTok, which mainly features my co-host Frank's instant post-game reactions after every single regular season game, which is titled The Mets Frankly Post-Game. For our audio listeners, make sure to follow us on all your favorite listening platforms to not miss the audio version of new episodes that go up at 9 a.m. the following day of recording. Also, make sure to give us a 5-star review. It would be greatly appreciated. But without further ado, let's get into episode number 170 of our show. And this one should be a somewhat eventful one. It's just me, so likely we'll be going for the 90 minutes instead of 2 hours, but still have plenty to talk about as the Mets do get a series win against a contending San Diego Padres team that has been playing some decent baseball for a decent amount of while in the second half. However, there still are things that the Mets do need to address. Obviously, the main question, of course, being with this starting rotation of who do you actually trust and how do you form this thing together if you were to make the postseason, because you are not very far away from making those decisions, about 9 games away from if they do make the postseason, which we don't know yet. But so far, it is flipping in their direction, but it could change at any moment. But there are plenty of things that they do need to address, and we're going to talk a lot about what's been going on with this starting rotation as this thing continues to wind down as we get closer and closer to October and the Mets potentially playing there. But either way, the Mets did get a little bit more closer to the possibility of playing in October with getting a series win over the San Diego Padres. They have 9 games left now. And this was a series win that, again, let's just say they fought it back from getting swept back in San Diego, I'd say a few months ago, and they did not play well. It was probably one of the turning point series of the season where the Mets were starting to sag off a little bit and kind of play with a more grimacing mentality, let's just say. There's still a lot of things that need to be pointed out that I think, I'm not going to say we're getting too ahead of ourselves, but we are in one of those situations where I feel like we can either ride the highs or just try to address things to make them better and sustain and continue this on, because so far how the Mets have been looking at it these past few weeks specifically, obviously with the division out of hand, you're looking at maybe some 3 teams that are behind you because they have not been playing well. But I don't know how all of this kind of carries and how all of this kind of sets to a point where we're confident in anything getting done properly, and I hate saying things like that, but it's more of the fact that you just don't really know what team you're going to get every single night, and that's the problem. You even saw it where the offense was good in game 1. The offense in game 2 missed a lot of opportunities. The offense in game 3, it was good enough, but they still missed some opportunities. It just seems like we're dealing with a different team every single day, and that's definitely not a situation you want to be in right now when you are in this final stretch of the playoffs. And obviously the starting rotation is a big part of that as to who do they actually trust, because right now they're in a situation where the guy that they probably expected to be their top guy, he has not been pitching like the top guy, even being sent down to the minor leagues. Kodai Senga yesterday just made his second start in AAA since being optioned down there, and it did not go well. So again, I feel like there's conversations that had to be had, and there's a pretty strong debate for probably anybody to make a start or probably somebody to not make a start in a playoff game. We're probably getting a little bit ahead of ourselves because the Mets obviously did not clinch anything yet. But if it does continue to go in this direction, they stack some wins, let's say at least one in Chicago, and then they take care of business with Washington and Miami, that probably will be enough to get them into the playoffs. So let's say 5 more wins, 5 out of 9, let's just say that. That'll probably get them into the postseason. So again, they're still going to have to win these games, and I feel like winning these games are still a little bit of a challenge. And for some reason, they probably should not be, but there are a lot of obstacles to overcome with this team, with the waning options in the bullpen that have been very, very inconsistent. The offense, when does it actually step up, especially in these big moments that they've come up short a lot this year? And we just saw that in game 2 of this series. And then, of course, the starting rotation, which seems to be leaning on the young kids to carry them to the promised land. So there's so many question marks with this team as to, we know what they are capable of, but is it going to show up on a nightly basis in order for them to make a playoff run? I don't know if it will. I have no clue. I'm not sure. I know it's capable, and I'm rooting for them to obviously show it, but it's really, really hard to say that I can write something in for this team to do, because it seems like every single person on this team has a very, very cold spot, and they all get hot at the same time, or they all get cold at the same time. It's a very frustrating team to watch. And whether they come off of a series victory or come off of a big game, it's really, really hard to believe that they will build on it. And I hate to be that type of negative person, but we've seen them struggle against Washington before. We know the Cubs are not a slouch. We know that that Miami or the Marlins or whatever you want to call them, they've completely played spoiler to us many, many times before, specifically in September. For my 08, 07 Mets fans that are watching right now, you guys know exactly what I'm talking about. So it's not like we haven't seen these shortcomings happen, and I'm hoping that they are able to buckle down, guys step up when they need to step up, and they're able to get into the postseason and maybe continue on to the expectations that they had. Who knows? You get into the postseason, you never know. It's a crapshoot. You have to play the games, but there are a lot of concerns that could come back to bite them. And that's the main reason as to why I don't really sit here with any confidence, and I don't think I will be sitting with much confidence towards the end of the season. I really don't think so, because I've seen all season this team just show glimpses of themselves and not build on it. And if the ball doesn't roll your way, maybe, I don't know, once or twice, like we've seen many, many times in this season, you're done in that wild card round. So again, there's so many things that need to go right that I don't know if that house of cards can stay together. That's my main concern here. Either way, it was a good series win to get over a good San Diego team, but they have to keep winning. They don't have a choice. Their magic number right now is 8. For those of you who don't know how magic numbers go, it's the amount of Mets wins plus the amount of losses from the team that is behind you. So I guess that would be Arizona / the Reds / maybe the Giants if they ever get there. But as of right now, with multiple teams behind them, because they haven't really played great in September, they're just going to have to keep on winning. That's literally it. And obviously, there might be some games where they lose. And just because they have a magic number of 8 doesn't mean they can only lose one game or they're done. That's not how that works. Obviously, by probability, teams behind them are going to lose because, again, they're also inconsistent teams. We've seen Arizona go on hot stretches. They've been cold. Cincinnati is almost identical to what the Mets have been going on this season, aside from the hot first month and a half that the Mets had. Cincinnati's been going back and forth all year. And then San Francisco, they've got flaws to that team as well. So, again, it's a crapshoot of who is going to get the upper hand at the end. I'm hoping that the Mets can prevail, but there's a lot of different outcomes that you are sure of possibly happening because there have been plenty of these types of games this year where they just either fall short, they collapse, or they just completely blow up. And that's not a great point of uncertainty to have when you're approaching October. We knew exactly what that 2024 team was last year. We knew exactly what they were by the time October hit. We knew how resilient they were or how, reliant they were on their top guys to go to come through, or how they were relying on some veterans to help them and be these guys in the clubhouse. The vibes were so high, and how they needed some guys to fill in the margins and do those little things right in order for them to make a run the way that they did. And not to mention the confidence and the resurgence of guys like Severino and Manaea was so huge for them. But right now, I can't really tell what this team is. And when I can't tell what this team is, I don't know if this team is a playoff-bound team. Whether they make it by default or make it by winning out for the rest of the season, I don't know how that looks on the postseason stage. And even though this is a similar team to last year, there's definitely some stuff that is different. And I feel like there are questions that do need to be answered if it goes in a different direction. But right now, it comes to a point of, well, is this good enough? Is this team actually good enough to face against teams that are contending, that are a huge threat in the National League? For those of you in here, make sure to leave a like on the stream if you have not already. Obviously, we're winding down this final 2 weeks of the season. We go into the postseason. If the Mets do make the postseason, we will have postseason coverage for you guys. It'll probably be a lot more interactive than these regular season streams, obviously. We will definitely be putting up some more specific coverage when that does happen, or if that does happen. Obviously, it's looking like the Mets will make the playoffs. But at the rate they're going, I would not be surprised if they were to make it on game 162, because that's basically how they like to put the flares up. They have a flair for the dramatic. That's something that they like to do. It's always been some things that they like to do. But it all really just comes down to the timing and getting hot at the right time. If the Mets get hot in these last 9 games, maybe you feel a little bit more confident. But not knowing what this team is on every given night, there's definitely some pushback. I think that I definitely push back in my, not just belief in the team, but my more of, I don't know, my trust that they will actually be able to do not the simple things right, but execute properly at the right time. Because it always seems like, even though they have had highs this season, they've had lows this season, but it always just seems like a lot of it is missed time. They never get that timely hit. They never get that timely, play defensively. They never get that timely in this certain situation. It always just seems like, well, we're just going to see if our stars can come through. And again, relying on this type of star power is something that you could definitely, be comfortable with. But I don't know. It's still just, it feels a lot different from last year. Definitely feels a lot different. Not just the resiliency of this team, but just the fact that I don't know what's going to show up every day. That's the main part of the uncertainty as to if the Mets can piece together 9 innings that are good 9 innings. But I don't know. They're still holding on to a playoff spot as of right now, regardless of the issues that they do have, and we will get into some of them, specifically in the rotation. But first, I obviously want to start with what happened in this series and run down this 3-game set against San Diego. So let's get into the series rundown. We start off with Game 1. Clay Holmes was on the mound, and he would make the start, and despite surrendering a pair of solo home runs in the second and third inning, he'd end his day with 4 innings pitched, 3 hits, 2 earned runs, 1 walk, 2 strikeouts on 53 pitches, leading to the Mets' plan to piggyback Sean Manaea, who would come in for the 5th and finish the game, only allowing 1 run on a solo shot to Freddie Fermin. He'd finish with 5 innings pitched, 4 hits, 1 earned run, no walks, 4 strikeouts on 71 pitches. The Mets offense would clobber Michael King in the first 2 innings. Francisco Lindor, Juan Soto, and Pete Alonso would load the bases with 3 straight singles. Brandon Nimmo would get them on the board with an RBI single. Jeff McNeil would slap a 2-run double. Brett Beatty would follow him with his 17th home run of the year to give the Mets a 5-0 lead after 1. In the second, up 5-1, Francisco Lindor would extend the Mets lead with his 27th home run of the year, and Pete Alonso would destroy his 35th home run of the year to make it 7-1 New York. Cedric Mullins would also add on with a home run of his own, his second as a Met, and his 17th of the year, as the piggyback experiment would be deemed a success in the series opener 8-3. Game 2, David Peterson would get the start and continue to struggle. More on that later. The backbreaker would come in the 5th after a hit by pitch, a walk, and a single to load the bases. Manny Machado would launch a grand slam, the first grand slam that Peterson has surrendered in his career. He'd finish the inning to end his day. 5 innings pitched, 6 hits, 6 earned runs, 3 walks, 1 strikeout on 85 pitches. Down 1-0 in the first, Pete Alonso would crush his 36th home run of the year, his second in the series, and in his 3rd straight game. Down 2-1 in the 4th, Starling Marte would tie the game with his 9th home run of the year. After Peterson's exit, the Mets would find themselves down 6-2 in the 5th. Juan Soto would get them closer with his 41st home run of the year, a solo shot to make it a 3-run game. Dom Hamill would make his major league debut in the 6th, and he'd work around 3 hits to toss a scoreless inning with help from Juan Soto's outfield assist to second base that would erase the run at home due to Elias Diaz not hustling. After a leadoff single in the 7th, Hamill would get pulled for Gregory Soto, who would load the bases on a single and a walk, but escape the jam with a ground out. Francisco Alvarez would launch the 4th solo home run of the night for the Mets, his 9th of the year, to make it a 2-run ball game. Ryan Helsley would pitch a scoreless 8th, thanks to a caught stealing, erasing a 1-out walk, but Ryan Stanek would give 1 back in the 9th, surrendering a 2-out solo home run to Ramon Laureano. The Mets would get the tying run to the plate in the 9th against Robert Suarez with a leadoff single by Brett Beatty and a 2-out walk to Francisco Lindor, but Juan Soto would line out to end the game to even the series in Game 2, 7-4. Game 3, Jonah Tong would make the start and bounce back completely after his horrendous start against the Texas Rangers. He'd end his day with 5 innings pitched, 4 hits, 0 earned runs, 1 unearned run, no walks, 8 strikeouts on 82 pitches. The Mets would open the scoring early in the 1st inning. Pete Alonso would launch his 37th home run of the year for his 4th home run in his 4th home run in 4 straight games, tied 1-1 in the 3rd after back-to-back singles by Francisco Lindor and Cedric Mullins. Mullins would go first to third and the Lindor would take second on the throw. Juan Soto would put the Mets on the board with a RBI ground out. Pete Alonso would follow with a walk, and he would set up Brandon Nimmo to crush a 3-run homer, his 24th of the season, to tie his career season high and make it 5-1 New York. With Tong's day done after 5, Tyler Rogers would get the 6th and toss a 1-2-3 inning on 7 pitches. Brooks Raley would also toss a 1-2-3 inning in the 7th. The Mets would add on after stretch time, after a leadoff walk to Francisco Lindor, a single by Juan Soto to make it 1st and 3rd. Pete Alonso would make it 6-1 New York with a sacrifice fly. Gregory Soto would pitch the 8th and work around 2 singles to toss a scoreless frame, and Edwin Diaz would get the 9th and toss a 1-2-3 inning with 2 strikeouts to end the game and secure the series victory over the Padres 6-1. The Mets are now 79-71 on the season, leading the Diamondbacks and the Reds by 2 games for the final National League wildcard spot, with their magic number to clinch a playoff spot trimming down to 8 with 9 games remaining. So, obviously, plenty of takeaways from this series. We had a little bit of everything, but the Mets were able to be deemed victorious in this one and able to scratch out a series win. Now, one thing I will say, the offense looked a little bit better, but still very hit or miss. It seemed like a huge piece and a huge source of offense was a lot of solo home runs, a lot of these situations where it seemed like they were coming up short because they weren't the best with runners in scoring position, but obviously this was being held up and led by Pete Alonso, who is now homered in 4 consecutive games and seems like he's starting to get hot at the right time. I'm not going to sit here and say that he's going to carry us throughout the entirety of the rest of the season, but he has been looking a lot better. We have seen home run streaks from Pete Alonso, but if he can remain hot like this, it definitely can help push this team into the direction that they want to go. I thought that one thing I will say, I thought that the bullpen was a lot stronger in this series. Let's just say that. Even though, the starting pitching kind of took over in that first game, obviously, with Holmes and Manaea, and I do want to get into that a little bit more specifically. But overall, with the bullpen, it seems like they were able to hold it down, especially in Game 2, and keep them remotely into the game, even though they weren't able to find a way to tie it or take the lead. And then in Game 3, backing up 5 innings from Jonah Tong, who looked so sharp in that final game, was pitching with so much more conviction, obviously. The fastball looked so much more crisp. We know that he has a tremendous fastball, a special fastball that has over 21 inches of induced vertical break. And if he is able to locate that properly and he's not offering it from the heart of the plate, from that certain arm angle, he's going to get a lot of fastball whiffs. We know that the secondary stuff is still in progress, it's still a work in progress, but he was able to command the fastball very well, set it up fairly well with his changeup as well. We know his slider is still a work in progress, but the way that this kid completely just brushed off a brutal start last time out against Texas, where he allowed 6 earned runs, not even getting out of the first inning. It was impressive to see him just go back out there and respond the right way. Obviously, we got, some stuff come out about what was going on behind the scenes after that entire blow up that he had. We saw some stuff about Sean Manaea kind of, being a little bit in the sympathetic realm, saying, pointing over to Jacob deGrom in the other dugout, saying, he's gone through this as well. You're going to go through it, but you're always going to bounce back, which is great show of leadership. Obviously, we know that Sean Manaea has not had the best season, but if he can, help these young guys and be a mentor for these young guys while he is struggling, maybe that helps him out as well. Obviously, we know that there was a lot of voices in that clubhouse when we talked about it last year. That definitely kept it going. Manaea was one of those veteran presence in the dugout, in the clubhouse. So for him to, pull the kid aside, say, we all go through things like that, but, there's always next. It's just to keep it simple. I mean, you don't want to have a 22-year-old kid sitting there overthinking, and it's possible that maybe the pressure did get to him in that whole in that entire series, in that last outing that he had. It's possible that it did. And I'm not shocked. I am not shocked whatsoever that it happened, because this is, again, a 22-year-old kid, and if you're expecting him to save the day, he's not going to save the day. It was never going to happen. The Mets are kind of leading on these kids to save the day for them because of how much of a mess this rotation has been, with Kodai Senga getting sent down to AAA, Manaea kind of getting moved to the bullpen in kind of a bulk role now, Clay Holmes kind of feeling the burnout of his first year as a starter, and then Peterson, will get into him, of what's been going on with him. I mean, they're in a really tough state, a very fragile state with this starting rotation, and I think that that's one of the main factors as to why people are kind of backing up and saying, well, is this team, do they have enough to actually make a push into the postseason like they did last year? Who knows? Who knows exactly? But we will figure it out real soon, because we're getting very, very close to that postseason threshold, and hopefully the Mets do make that, but they do have some decisions to make. So we'll see what happens there. Obviously, there's been a conglomerate of injuries as well that has been happening with this pitching staff too. You can't deny that. But there's definitely some decisions that have to be made, and there might be some uncomfortable decisions that the Mets are going to have to make to probably try and make this work, such as piggybacking guys like Manaea and Clay Holmes on top of each other. Do they do that with another pair? I don't know, but I guess we're going to have to figure that out as this final 2 weeks winds down of baseball season, and then also going into the postseason if they end up doing that, because again, postseason is a do or die. If a guy doesn't have it, he doesn't have it. You got to take him out, and you got to move to another situation. But again, great start by Jonah Tong. We'll get into Peterson a little bit later. And then obviously we'll get into Clay Holmes as well with Manaea. But I do want to talk a little bit about, obviously, some stuff with the offense. Let me just say, obviously, they did enough to get by in this series. But again, we are still looking for that time where the Mets actually come through in these big spots, which has been one of these really rough situations all year long. They are now 0-65 when trailing after the ninth inning, or after the eighth inning. So when they go into the ninth inning, they are winless all year. They have not had a single ninth inning comeback win this year, which, again, you obviously are put in a certain hole there. Coming back is not something that continues to happen. However, there is a call to realize that, your highest bats, your big bats that are supposed to be making this top dollar, the fact that we are winless in those situations with your top bats getting the most plate appearances, because they usually do, obviously, that's definitely comes as a concern, because not only just because you pay these guys to come through big when it matters, and such as Lindor or Soto or Alonso, and, for most of the regard, they have come through in high leverage situations in certain places, but when it all comes down to the wire, it also just shows you that this is a little bit different of a team than it was last year, because last year they had a lot of ninth inning dramatics. We know that they did. It drove us nuts, but they showed a lot of fight. And for this team, I don't know how much fight this team shows on a regular basis. It's very hit or miss. It really is very hit or miss. And it really does come to show with that certain side of being 0-65 when you are behind after the eighth inning. It shows. It definitely does show. It doesn't show the entirety of the story because the Mets have had comebacks this season. But it definitely does show a little bit of different identity for this team. And for when you have invested so much into it, it's a little concerning. It is a little concerning. We saw Juan Soto come up as the tying run multiple times in this series and not come through. We have seen plenty of these situations where maybe some of the young guys are doing better in the clutch than the big guys, than the top guys who are making the top dollar. This all comes into relative concern. I'm not going to sit here and say that yes, because they're winning games, because they're in these certain situations, I still don't feel confident in this team playing a close game. I don't. With the House of Cards bullpen that they have at this current moment, with a rotation that probably could give runs back at any point, and the fact that this team just really has not come through in these big moments that we have a decent enough sample to know that this team, it doesn't seem like they come through in the biggest moments. It seems like one of their main sources of offense come early, and they come in little spurts. And we also know that one of their biggest sources of offense is solo home runs. And listen, you take you take them any way that you can get them, obviously. Runs are runs. But when it comes to the postseason, all you're going to be playing is close games. That's it. You only have maybe one blowout, less than one blowout on average in every single playoff series. Especially now when no team is overmatching another team. Any team can win. There's no juggernaut team. I don't even think there's any team this year. There might be one. Any team this year that's going to win 100 games. Is there any team? I don't think so. The closest may be the Brewers. The Brewers at 94 wins right now, and they'll have to push a little bit for that. You're going to have a decent amount of leveled out competition. There could be a possibility that the Dodgers don't even win 90 games this year. That's how close and tight-knit it is. So again, you're going to have a good amount of tight games in the postseason, and I just don't know if this team is capable of playing them. And that's a scary thought. It is a scary thought. It's a very hit or miss type of situation as to where it gets a little uneasy. It really does. And I don't know how the Mets have done in one-run games this year. I could probably look at it. Yeah, one-run games. Let's take a look. They are 23 and 25 this year in one-run games. So, again, that's a coin flip. That is. And I remember them playing better in one-run games when the season started, because obviously the pitching was better intact. But I don't know. I don't know if the offense is capable of these tight-knit spots, and I don't know if the pitching is able to either. And that's the one thing that does worry me. Because we know the talent is there. We know this team is talented, but they have to execute. And there really is just not much, I don't know. Not much. Phillips saying they also cannot come back versus other teams' bullpens. Yeah, exactly. That's basically what I'm saying. It's it's one of those things where, I don't know if this team is capable of being made for that type of high-pressure moment. Because if you were to look at, whether you want to look at it from simply or more specific, in high-leverage situations, this team is third in weighted runs created plus all year. And that might seem like something, But again, they're about, I don't know, middle of the pack, close to the end in runs scored. So they're getting opportunities, they're creating runs, they're creating offense, but they're not coming through in those situations. And that's definitely a concern, especially when you're talking about an offense that is making a lot of top dollar, a lot. And that can go to Juan Soto, who this year, 41 home runs, one of them is in high leverage. Jeff McNeil has more high leverage home runs this year than Juan Soto. That's a crazy stat, isn't it? And the Mets this year, all year, they have 12 home runs all year in high leverage situations. That would put them about 21st. So again, the big hit when they need it, that big swing where they need it, I don't know if they're completely capable of doing that. And that's definitely a scary moment. Scary thing to think about. Very scary. Either way, some other takeaways in this series. Like I said, the bullpen did fairly well. Good series for, excuse me. Wait a minute. Good series for, obviously, Pete Alonso. Juan Soto was good in this series, but I also think that, if I get this right, hold on. I don't want to. I wish there was a lot more easier way to do this, but I guess I can't. I gotta manually toggle this. One thing I will say. Okay, let me just say something here. And I'm not going to sit here and just completely bank on it. Recently, since he has gotten a lot of the criticism recently, in this series, Cedric Mullins actually played pretty well. I can't say he hasn't. He actually was pretty good, drawing walks, stole a base or two, got a couple of hits, homered in this series. He's definitely looked like he's gotten used to, the whole situation here. I don't know how long this will last. He's still, striking out a lot, but he's also making up for it by getting on base a little bit. And batting ninth, doing that to turn over the order has been somewhat valuable. So I'm not going to sit here and say that Cedric Mullins has been terrible. Over this last week, he's started to come around a little bit slowly. Could it fade off at any point? I don't know. But again, good series from him. He was pretty good. Seemed to be being a catalyst as well. Starling Marte did not have many ABs, but he did have a good amount of ABs. He had good quality ABs when he was up. Ryan Helsley, it looks to be a little bit more sharper. But we'll see. We will see. Again, there's still just plenty of question marks here that I don't think can make anybody feel any confident, because I feel like we're going to be talking about different question marks the next time that we do this. The next time that we get on here for the national series that's upcoming here. MEZ saying Suarez was ready to give it up the other night. Soto hit a rocket right back into him. Again, this is the thing. It's like shoulda, woulda, coulda. Like it still just doesn't happen. When you're 0-65 when you're 0-65 this year, when behind after the eighth inning, it's just the story of it. It really is just the story of it. And listen, Soto did hit a rocket right back to him. But again, there's only so many things you can say when you're, 150 plus games into the year. You're going to have to come through. They need him to come through. They need these guys to come through, and it does not seem like any of these guys are coming through late into the game, late and close. It just seems like whatever offense we can muster for the first 5 innings and see if the bullpen can hold on to it, which it's been rough for them to do so. And that's a little bit concerning to have for a team that's, not really great at playing from behind. They just put themselves in a really rough space. Because I feel like when this team ends up winning, we know that they're capable of winning these games. And when they do win these games, we feel like they're going into this right direction, obviously. But there's also there's a very low with this team as to where they do really underperform a lot, especially in these situations. And the reason why I bring this up is because you're going to be in these situations all the time in the postseason. If this team is postseason made, they're going to have to come in and come through in these situations. Not just with the runners in scoring position, but in the 9th inning, in the 8th inning, down a run, down 2 runs. That's going to happen. And that's why I don't know how to feel. I don't know how to feel about this team going into the postseason. I know they have the talent. I know that they have the team that can do it. But will they? I don't know. That's not a fun question to ask for a team that has a lot of, expensive contracts or expensive pieces on it. It's not like it hasn't gotten better throughout the season. But again, in those big moments, I'm not seeing anyone step up. I'm just not. They're not great in close games. That's what you're going to see in the postseason. So maybe they play better close games these next 9 games, and I'll look like an idiot here. But over 150 games have been played. This team is not good at walking a tightrope whatsoever. They're just not. Of course, Stanek gives up the insurance home run. Yeah, and with 2 out as well, the Mets do have a tendency as well. This is also on the pitching staff. They have a tendency with 2 out, they get to 2 strikes, and they can't finish it. It always seems like it's really hard for them to escape jams as well. I don't know. I feel like things are just way too hard fought for this team for it to be meant to be for this team to actually come through in those situations when it matters. And a lot of it can be self-inflicted. A lot of it will be, maybe considered bad luck at points. But when you have a sample size, like I said, 0-65. 0-65 this year. When you're behind after the 8th inning, it shows you what this team really is. And what the team really is, I don't know if that bodes well in the postseason. I just don't know if it does. Maybe they prove us wrong. I don't know. Also, another good performer in this series, Brett Beatty, was really, really good. After he kind of slowed down over these last few weeks, he started to pick it up a little bit. He's now up to 17 homers on the season, which is a lot more than I expected him to get. I don't know what it looks like going forward with all these infielders here, but Beatty has definitely been better as compared to some of the stretches he's had. He's still very inconsistent. He's probably the best way I'd describe this team, where you don't know who you're going to get every single night. You can't write in anything. But again, Brett Beatty has contributed in the bottom part of the lineup. Mark Vientos, although he's kind of cooled off a little bit over this past week, he seems to be a lot more ready and looks like an actual competitive hitter now. But he obviously had that huge stretch of, all those home runs that he hit in, August, right? He was just red hot. So obviously he was going to cool off from that. I don't think he was in the lineup yesterday, but he will be in the lineup today, I believe, DHing. I'm pretty sure Beatty is at second base. No, so Marte is DHing, and Vientos is batting cleanup at third base. So I don't know how I feel about that with Brendan Sproat on the mound being relatively more of a ground ball pitcher as a sinker baller, but what are you going to do? It seems like the Mets just continue to commit to this switching in and out, this switching of conglomerate and not having anything completely consistent. I don't think that does them justice, that helps them at all, but it seems like the philosophy they've been going with all year, so I don't know why I would just continue to repeat myself and question it at this point. But we'll see where the playing time rises. What does Mark Vientos end up playing more of in the postseason? Because we know that he was a big contributor to them in the postseason last year. Had a insane run for them. He was amazing. But where would he be at? Would he be a little bit more on the DH side? Would he be playing third base? Who knows? Same thing goes for Beatty. Would he be playing third base? Would he be playing second base? Do we see a little bit of Jeff McNeil in the outfield? I feel like them flipping things around has been, they're accustomed to now. But I don't know. I feel like they have to set something with it, but I don't know. I really don't know. That's just my preference, but it seems like the Mets just go another way. It's what it is. It is what it is, but it's because I'm not really surprised in that way. Let's just say that. Let's get into some studs and duds in this series. One player that was good in these three games, one player that was not. Obviously, on the stud side, Pete Alonso, 4 straight games with a home run. Obviously, the first one to end off the 8-game losing streak against Texas, but he homered in every single one of these games against San Diego. It looks like he is starting to pick it up a little bit. Again, he has been great with some of these ABs recently. They've been a lot more competitive. We saw a little bit of a sector this season where he was chasing a lot more, kind of looking like his 2024 version of himself. And he started to settle in September. He's definitely been a lot better. He's slashing 286, 329, 619, 157 weighted runs created plus. He has 6 home runs, 11 runs batted in. He has over 120 RBIs for the season. He's been their biggest run contributor, obviously, best with runners in scoring position. But, again, those big moments, he also has been one that has come up short as well. He's come through, but he's also come up short as well. This is now the third time in his career he is past the 120 RBI threshold. And, again, we all know what type of career he has had. We'll see what his future holds. But if he does want to see a future here, these next 9 games, we're going to need you to step up. And I know that the table is definitely set for it because I know that he likes to mash in Chicago and Miami. So hopefully that's what ends up happening. We know what he is capable of. Hopefully he can finish strong, because if he does finish strong, we're going to be in a really, really good place if they end up going into October. They will go into October if Pete Alonso is hot for the rest of the season. That is a guarantee for you, whether you have questions with your pitching staff or not. As for the duds, I'm going to go to the guy that I'm going to actually talk about next. So that's how we are going to segue this in. David Peterson. David Peterson, since the All-Star break, it has not been sharp whatsoever. And he has been one of the more reliable arms recently. Over these last 2 years, it seems like he was the most sturdy out of every single one of them. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that I would know this all along because, again, I was one of Peterson's biggest critics. I was always one of his biggest critics of the consistency with his stuff, and his command is not great. His stuff isn't fantastic, so again, he's got to locate properly, but he wasn't able to locate properly. He was getting hit too hard. But recently, over these last 2 years, it's been a little bit more of a breakout for him. He obviously had that hip surgery that obviously seems to have worked wonders ever since it happened. But recently, since his All-Star selection at the All-Star break, we've had quite a bit of blow-ups from David Peterson, and he has not been helpful whatsoever. I know we can basically go down the list of guys who have not had good starts for the Mets. Kodai Senga, Sean Manaea. All of these guys have had really, really bad starts, and they've been one of the main reasons as to why the Mets have been put in so many different of these positions. But when it comes to David Peterson's entire second half, it just has not been good enough. In these last 11 starts, he has pitched just 58.1 innings. He has not been able to go as deep into games a few times this year. Even though he's been giving volume, it still just hasn't been keeping them in the game enough. He owns a 5.71 earned run average, giving up a lot more base runners. The strikeouts are up, but again, the walks are up as well. So canceling those two out, giving up base runners and clearing out base runners. He's also really not done well with runners on base from the stretch. We all know that he is, a king at inducing double play balls, but that's definitely not been the case recently. Now, when you look at his last start, which is probably the second worst that he has had, like we said, 5 innings, it was 6 earned runs, wasn't able to get out of that jam, giving up 6 runs, giving up the grand slam to Manny Machado, which, to be honest, on that pitch, I will say it wasn't that bad of a pitch. Manny Machado's a really good hitter. We know he is. But again, I don't know what this could mean with David Peterson. Could this be the fact that he has surpassed his innings capacity and throughout his entire career? He's at 167.1 innings pitched, which is a career high. The next highest being 121, that being last year. So now he just keeps elevating in workload. Could it be a burnout for him? I don't know. But he's not someone who is a power pitcher. He's always been one to pitch to contact. And when you do pitch to contact, you do have to be very, very precise. But when you're not, you can get hit hard a lot. You really can. But it also does come to show he also has had a few good starts as well in this mix as well in the second half. It hasn't been all bad. He had one start where he went 8 innings in Washington, striking out 10. He had one outing where it was 2-run ball for 6 innings. He has had, a few outings where it was, 2-run ball going into the 6th inning. He's had a few where it was 6 scoreless innings or 6 innings of 1-run ball. Like, he's had good performances, but we're also seeing the type of inconsistency that we were seeing with David Peterson before he got that hip surgery. Now, I have always been someone who's been, called out, and for good reason, because again, I was never the biggest fan of David Peterson as a pitcher for his stuff. I never thought his stuff was fantastic. But it seemed like he was getting into a really, really good groove of this type of contact management. Whether you want to put it in the hands of the defense or not and say that maybe the defense plays a bit of a factor in that, maybe. But being able to induce an elite amount of ground balls, which he does at a 55% rate this season, some of the balls are going to get through. And again, there's points where, he's going to have to be in need of a strikeout. One thing I think the biggest struggle for him has been not just throwing strikes recently, but also the fact that he really has struggled to expand the zone. He really has struggled a lot in this second half to expand the zone, be able to get chases, specifically with that slider. And that's definitely been something that has been holding him back over these past, months since the All-Star break. He has not pitched like the All-Star pitcher that he was in the first half. And it seems like, I don't know if it's burnout, I don't know if it's this or that, but it just doesn't seem he is getting those chases that we usually are used to him getting. Not to mention just swings outside of the strike zone, they're down. To start off the season in that first half, the outside swing rate on his pitches was about 32%. It's right now down to 24%. So that's definitely a big difference, especially when you're a starting pitcher who throws a lot of pitches out of the zone because you're a contact manager. And you're there to try and miss bats. And for that, walks have been going up. He's been allowing a lot more base runners. He's keeping the ball still in the ballpark. But keeping the ball out of play has not been ever his strong suit. But when you talk about all the hard contact he's been giving up recently, that's when it becomes a major concern. That's when it starts to become something where you're like, okay, is the league starting to figure him out? You know, is it a point of platoon or right-handed hitters starting to hit him well? Are left-handed hitters starting to hit him well? I think right-handed hitters have definitely had their number against Peterson. They've been able to get on base a lot this year, including 10 of the 11 home runs he's given up this year have been to right-handed hitters. He's faced more right-handed hitters, obviously, and he's struck out a lot more. But right-handed hitters, they're batting .261 against him this year. They have almost over 700 OPS, which, if you were to talk about that in comparison to last year, it's a lot different. It seemed like more of the success was obviously to right-handed hitters, and right-handed hitters were obviously hitting him, more into the ground. But it seemed like the command sort of fixed itself over these last few years. It seemed like maybe the hip surgery was the factor. But recently, I feel like we've lost the plot a little bit. Listen, I'm not someone who likes to get attached to pitching, but we all knew that David Peterson was seen as a dependable piece to this rotation for multiple years now. And he's put up great stretches for this team. But recently, when we've needed him to step up, he really just has not been himself. He really has not. I don't know what the factor is. Could it be a burnout of the most innings that he's pitched in his career? I don't know. I don't know if it is. But we really do need him to step up. And he probably will end up making another start for this team. It seemed like a lot of the time, that when David Peterson was on the mound, the Mets were in line for a win. This time around, I don't know if they are. It's been a little hit or miss. Obviously, the bullpen factors into that a little bit, but it seems like he's running out of gas right now. And he seems to just be another question mark in a rotation that can't afford another question mark. So what is there for them to do? I don't know. Could this be another piggyback situation where you have Kodai Senga and David Peterson? Maybe. That might have to be the situation for them now. It may sound stupid and silly, but it's basically the only way that they can get through these situations now. We knew that, there was going to be points of concern and question marks in this rotation. However, I don't think we expected it to be to this certain extreme where you can't get volume, quality, quantity of anything, and you're going to have to stack guys on top of each other, which is fine. Because, again, I'm all for babying pitchers because they're too fragile to be put into, a certain routine where they will never get hurt because pitching is just too irregular of a motion and they throw so hard now. But, I don't think anybody really expected that. And since the beginning of August, guys like David Peterson, rough. Very rough. And if you wanted to go, just to the beginning of August and not to the All-Star break, it looks even more bleak that he has really, really been struggling. I gave him the benefit of the doubt of the All-Star break, which he had a few good outings. But if you go back to August 1st, he has a 6.99 earned run average. He's still getting a decent amount of the ground balls. The walks are just up a lot. Seems like he's riding up full counts a little bit. He's not getting ahead of the count. Very inconsistent. Very, very inconsistent. And I'm not going to sit here and swear him out of the rotation because I feel like we've had way worse. But we do need him to step up. We really do. And if he's unable to do that, maybe he's another casualty. It's hard to rely on contact managers when they can't contact manage. It's just kind of a known fact as of right now. And when you're not able to, he can't get the slider over. He can't get the chases. He's not finding the range on his breaking pitches. It's hard to overcome that, especially with a offense that has struggled to fight back, that has struggled to come through and play from behind. He's allowed a lot of base runners in this span. He has only stranded 55.6% of them, which throughout the entire year, 70.5%. So again, from the stretch he's been struggling, getting ahead in the count he has been struggling, expanding the zone he has been struggling. The only thing that has still been going okay for him has been the home run ball, which has been staying in the park. But he's also given up his fair share of home runs in this stretch, too. He's given up a fair share of extra base hits, too. I can pop this up. He's given up, since August 1st, he has given up, let me see, 27 extra base hits in these last 9 starts, which is not great. For a contact manager, not so great. For a guy who's chasing strikeouts, a lot better. Maybe a little bit better, something you expect to attack hitters. But contact management, no, sir. No, sir. That is bad. Very, very bad. So I don't know what the deal is going to be. I don't know what his role will be in the postseason. But I will ask everyone, do you trust David Peterson to make a postseason start? Because if that was the question 2 months ago, you'd probably say yes. But now, I don't know. I really don't know. And you can ask that pretty much for anybody in this rotation right now, unfortunately. But I don't know. I have no clue. Speaking of this rotation, let's actually get into Manaea and Holmes. Now, they did a piggyback in the first game of this series, and it went well. It went fine. It was great. They did what they needed to do. They kept them in the game. I think all of the runs given up were all via solo home runs in that first game, which, Manaea and Holmes have had tendencies to give up some home run balls. But they looked very sharp. My co-host Frank has talked about it before on this show, talking about the possibility of stacking Manaea and Holmes together. The only concern that I had with this was the fact that Clay Holmes, in this first year as a full-time starter, it's really hard to get him out of the routine, sit here and say, well, you're just going to be a reliever now. Because, again, the reliever version of Clay Holmes is a lot different from the starter version of Clay Holmes. He's got a very different arsenal. He's got a different setup, a different sequence. And for him to just change that on the fly, that's a taller ask for than, his struggles to get out of the fifth inning. But they were able to start him and also kind of cool off the workload. I would say this is why I think it's good, because it cooled off the workload for Clay Holmes that has been, bigger than it ever has been in his career as a full-time starter for the first time in his career. And then you have Manaea, who all year he has not been ramped up. Like, he's not in a good position where he can be a full-time starter right now. I do think that Manaea is going to be fine in the long run, and I've talked about it before as to where the swing and miss stuff is still there. And to be honest, he hasn't really been walking many. It's more of just been the durability and the conditioning to go deep into games. So stacking these two on top of each other with their certain situations, I think it benefits this team a lot. And not to mention, just in this era of baseball, you don't see pitchers that go past 5 innings these days regularly. Maybe you see guys who are right in for 6, but there's only a select few. So why not stack them on together? And that's where the point of emphasis goes with the Mets. Either if we're talking about in dire need of wins right now, because obviously they're in a playoff race, but also the fact that the Mets have options that are good enough, and they have multiple guys who they can stock on top of each other. And they have pieces that they can, go in and out with. Now, Manaea, we'll see if he does pitch in that game. It looked like Carlos Mendoza said in some facet he will pitch. So I'm going to guess he comes out of the bullpen again because he is on paternity leave right now. So congratulations to Manaea and his wife, obviously, on their child being born. But either way, there is a point to be had where, again, even though Tyler McGill isn't great, Griffin Canning's out, no Christian Scott this year, Senga, he's in the minor leagues right now. Putting all of this together, of putting together innings instead of starts, it may not look pretty. It may not work every single time, but it's probably the best way to go to get the best out of them. And for Manaea, I established this as a lost season. I think this is a lost season for him. We all know it is. He's been hurt for a majority of it, and he struggled to be the starter that we saw him as last year. That was a huge key to them getting into the playoffs and making a deep playoff run. As for Clay Holmes, he's past the 150 innings threshold, so having him do 4 outing starts for maybe the last 3 starts that he does probably would be a good cool down for that. Now, do they try this with some other combination? I don't know. Will it be Senga and Peterson who has struggled? I don't know. But also for the fact of a bullpen that's been inconsistent, a super bullpen that isn't that super and hasn't been super since they traded for it. Even though you have the extra 2 roster spots, you can have an extra reliever in the bullpen. It also does give some rest to your big guns as well. Because there is somebody in that bullpen that gets used a lot. A lot. I mean, he is probably at 80 innings in relief this year, and he's not even a multi-inning reliever, and that being Tyler Rogers. Now, Tyler Rogers obviously doesn't throw as hard, and we all know he has that funky delivery. But again, he gets used a lot. Like, again, usage can wear a guy down no matter if he throws hard or not. And Tyler Rogers has like 80 innings of work this year already. He's always been someone who pitches a lot, but being in 75 games before the season even ended, that's a lot. And you're going to need Taylor Rogers a lot as well in these certain situations to induce ground balls. in the postseason if you make it there. And I know Tyler Rogers has had a few shortcomings. He's struggled a little bit, but he has done his job a lot better compared to guys like Gregory Soto, who has been a mess, or Ryan Helsley, who's been probably the worst trade deadline acquisition in the league this year. That's how bad he has been. So again, it all ties together. We've talked about it before. It's a trickle-down effect with the pitching staff. Workloads are a thing now. It's a lot different of a game. And it's also one of the main reasons as to why you don't commit to pitching, whether you're talking about past the age of 30 or talking about the mileage on their arm or the lack of mileage on their arm. The healthy median, I don't think will ever be found. It just won't be. And that is unfortunate. Now, Tong, Sproat, and McLean, they are seen as probably future pieces to this team and future pieces to their rotation. But as of right now, as they hold it down, they're going to have to figure out what they do. Does that include Sean Manaea making starts and being cut off early after, 60 pitches or whatever? Does that mean Clay Holmes pitching, extended opening as well? Does that mean, David Peterson comes out of the pen as an extra lefty in the bullpen? Does that mean you use an opener? How long do you push these rookies as well? And those are the question marks that are going to have to turn into answers real soon if they're going to make a deep run into the postseason. So we'll see how that goes. But Manaea and Holmes, it was successful. They most likely will be doing it in this upcoming series, which we will get into in a second. But again, when it comes to a lot of these roles of what they're going to do, there's going to be a little bit more of a creative sense that may be a little bit unorthodox to the original that they usually do. But, as of right now, you got 9 games left. It's balls to the wall. That's literally it. Anything that you can figure out that could work, you should try it. Because what they have been doing for a majority of the season and relying on these young guys as of right now, who knows when they have a blow-up. We just saw Jonah Tong last week struggle a lot. You can't put that type of pressure on the kids like that. And that's what they're kind of doing. So maybe piecing together these innings, stacking these arms onto each other is probably their way of trying to take a little bit of a pressure off of these kids. Because I do think it will. It also takes a little bit less, just one more day where the bullpen could rest a little bit more. I'm not saying it's going to succeed every single time. But Manaea's in a point where he can be a long reliever as of right now because he's not ramped up. He's not in shape to be a starter. We all know he has to get that procedure at the end of the year for the loose bodies in his elbow. And hopefully that'll bring him back to full starter status because, again, the talent's still there. We've talked about it before. The swing and miss stuff is still there, but it's basically just maintaining it through the middle innings, which he has struggled with a lot this year. And that has been one of the things that have made him such a liability. So, hopefully, decisions are made. There's plenty. But this is definitely an innovative way for them to approach this. And I'm good with it. As long as it doesn't disrupt what's going on with Clay Holmes of him being a starter. Or, if it doesn't disrupt things in the bullpen, I'm good with it. I am 100% good with it. And again, putting different looks out there because, again, this is another thing that makes this pairing so good. Manaea, obviously from that low arm slot. Clay Holmes, the sinker baller from the right side. It does give you a little bit of a different look. And it also grants you the benefit of the fact that, there's never going to be a third time around the order because you're not going to get there. You never will. So there's not really much homework these hitters can do when a third time around the order happens. Because once 18 batters are faced, likely there's a pitching change after 4 innings. So it was well done. They did a good job. But they got to figure it out. Game for War saying you call it innovative, I call it desperate. You can call it both. To be honest, you could call it both. To be honest, I think they didn't really expect to be in this sort of predicament. This sort of predicament where their number one starter that they expected to be more like a number one starter, be a frontline starter, is in AAA right now. The number 2 starter that they signed, they didn't expect him to get injured the first day of camp. And they've had to kind of improvise in that way. And they've stayed afloat at least, but it's been ugly. It's definitely been ugly. And I think that we do know that we can turn our heads to a more brighter future, but getting there's a final stretch in between that. We know that Christian Scott, he'll probably get some time in AAA beforehand, but he'll also be somebody that they see as a piece. Those 4 young arms, could that be 4 guys in your rotation next year? It could be, with the promise they have shown, but we'll see. We'll see how they approach this. Should be interesting, because there are multiple starters on this team that maybe they're not here next year. You never know. And I think it also comes to the point where you can bring in these guys for these multiple innings, and then the guys like Brendan Waddell and Justin Hageman don't need to keep coming up here and kind of wearing it. You can try and stay in the game with more starters out there. So they're trying to find a place for it. Hopefully it works out. But I am definitely in this current predicament that the Mets are in. I am definitely good with them making this decision, as long as it's executed properly. And that's what they did execute in this series. Like I said, Clay Holmes cooling off his first year as a major league starter, but not messing with it. Not just having him move to the bullpen and that's it. And then Sean Manaea trying to salvage whatever they have left from a lost season that he has had. So I think it's a good idea as of right now. Would I do it, stacking it for everything in the playoff? Like, would I do Peterson and Senga or whatever? I don't know. But there is decisions that have to be made. Do you see Jonah Tong in this rotation for the playoffs? I don't know. A lot of pressure to put on the kid. A lot. So we'll see. We'll see what they end up doing. Speaking of, let's get into the injury report real quick. We have 2 updates for what has been going on this week. And we start off with a little bit of unfortunate news. Mets reliever Reed Garrett has been placed on the injured list due to a right elbow sprain. The Mets manager, Carlos Mendoza, stated that Reed Garrett is out for the remainder of the 2025 season. He will undergo further imaging this week, with Tommy John surgery rising as a possibility. Mets catcher Francisco Alvarez exited Tuesday night's game in the 8th inning after being hit in the left arm by a 100-mile-an-hour fastball. The 23-year-old felt some soreness in the left tricep area before nursing the injury with a large ice wrap. Mets manager Carlos Mendoza said that Alvarez avoided any serious injury and returned to the Mets starting lineup the next day. Alvarez has been playing through a UCL sprain in his right thumb and a broken pinky finger in his left hand since returning from the injured list last month. Is there any possibility to break a guy like Francisco Alvarez. I mean, this guy seems to be just completely indestructible. He has a very high pain tolerance. Listen, I don't know if he's going to be able to be doing that when he gets into his 30s, but I mean, he's taking advantage of the young age here as to where he is going out there and trying to post no matter what, and he wants to be out there. So kudos to him. I don't know if it's a completely great idea how he's been doing it. I think there's a risk there, but he's at least been good since he came back from the injured list, which is one of my main concerns. Reed Garrett, I can't say I'm shocked. I really can't. We've seen a lot of fatigue throughout his Mets tenure, even though he has had some good moments and some bad moments. Obviously, he's had some good stretches and bad stretches. One of my friends actually was at the game and saw Reed Garrett in the bullpen look like he was, laboring a little bit with his arm while he was warming up. And then the next day, this announcement comes out. So maybe something happened in that bullpen session where he was just a little bit uncomfortable. It's sad because he was a big contributor to this team and he had some really, really good moments for this team. He's had some really good stretches. He's also had some rough. It's been up and down. He's a very streaky reliever for this team. But if he does undergo Tommy John surgery, that is another one that bites the dust right there. The Mets have had multiple guys undergo Tommy John surgery, especially in that bullpen. Plenty of injuries in general. Obviously, AJ Minter, the big one. Danny Young, Dinel Nunez was another one who underwent Tommy John surgery. They've had multiple relievers just go down for multiple stints. Max Kranick needs Tommy John surgery, or I think he had like elbow surgery. It's not really Tommy John surgery, but whatever. Obviously, Christian Scott has been out all year. Drew Smith is still here. He's recovering from Tommy John surgery as well. They have quite a bit that are recovering from it. So, again, it's basically something that is a prerequisite for pitchers, but it is unfortunate when it happens. And when it comes to, some studies, if you want to talk about how it shows, sinker ballers get probably the most of wear down on their elbow because the sinker is one of the hardest pitches or the most, I guess, physically hard pitch to throw and maintain. And that's the main reason why you have a decent amount of hard sinker ballers that don't start. You don't see that many of them. You don't see hard sinker ballers that hit the high 90s like Reed Garrett does as starters. Usually not. Sometimes you do. You see a lot of fastballs of guys that can hit 100. But sinkers, it's a little bit different. There's a different grip. There's a different, mechanics to it. And it can be putting a pitcher in harm's way to hurt their elbow. We've talked about this with Sean Manaea too. Not even throwing his sinker this year, probably because he can't. And he's kind of had to adjust to being a 2-pitch, maybe 3-pitch as an occasional thing. So, sinkers are sinkers. They can be rough, and that's the main reason as to why I've talked about my concern with Brandon Sproat a little bit. I talked about this last episode, I believe, where they took him out with his velo going down. I was okay with that too, because again, after 70 pitches, if his velo going down, velo is going down. But again, he's also a sinker baller. He's pitching tonight. He's also a sinker baller, and he actually has never gotten Tommy John surgery, which is a lot more scary compared to getting Tommy John surgery these days. So they're going to have to be careful with that. So again, Reed Garrett, we wish you the best. Wish him a speedy recovery. But that's just another one of this bullpen that hits the injured list. That probably is now, let's see, make that 8 relievers on the shelf. 3 starters on the shelf right now. And then Manaea on paternity leave. So, yeah. Anyways, moving on to this upcoming series against Washington, which will probably kick off in about a half hour regarding any crazy weather or anything. Let's get into the probables for this series. And we start with game one, which is tonight. Brandon Sproat, Mets pitching prospect. He will start the series opener. He'll face the rookie left-hander Andrew Alvarez. First pitch is tonight at 7:10 p.m. Eastern Time on SNY. Game two, Mets pitching prospect Nolan McLean will make the start, rapidly approaching his ace status. Very, very quick. He'll face the former highly coveted pitching prospect Cade Cavalli. First pitch is tomorrow afternoon at 4:10 p.m. Eastern Time on SNY. And in game three, like we were just discussing, Clay Holmes or Sean Manaea in either order will likely pitch the series finale. Most likely will be Clay Holmes that starts. If it's not, it's whatever. One of them will face the 25-year-old Mitchell Parker, who has definitely struggled this season in his first big year in the big leagues. First pitch is Sunday afternoon at 1:40 p.m. Eastern Time, also on SNY. We've talked about this Nationals team many, many times before. They have given us fits. There have been plenty of bullpen meltdowns against this team, not just in history, but this year they've had plenty. But we know that this Nationals team is not good. They're not a good baseball team. They are in last place. They have been in last place pretty much all season. And the Mets need to get the job done. There can't be just sitting here playing around for no reason and no reason at all. We know that James Wood has really, really struggled in the second half. He started to get it going in spurts this year, but nothing crazy. C.J. Abrams, another very young, talented player, still only 24. It seems like he's been in the league for a while, but he still is very, very young. And, they have had some other good performers individually. Let's just say that. But nothing too crazy. It shouldn't be a lineup that they have trouble with, but we've seen the Mets just go on a crapshoot on the pitching side. Let's just say that. They actually have, let's see, Josh Bell is still with the team, not having his best season, still has 20 home runs this year. He actually is second on the team in home runs behind James Wood, but this team does not really hit as many home runs. They're 27th in the league in home runs, but we know that they can swipe bases. They are 9th in stolen bases this year. But the starting pitching, this is their chance. This is their chance for the offense to wake up, because their starting rotation is pretty much bottom 5 in every single category. They're 29th in earned run average. They're 17th in walks. They're 27th in strikeouts. They are, they give up a lot of home runs as well. Their relievers, it's probably the worst bullpen in all of baseball, but we've also seen the Mets struggle against their bullpen, with them being the worst bullpen in baseball. Like we said, there's plenty of young players on this team. Like we said, their rebuild obviously didn't go fantastic when they traded away Juan Soto, and Trey Turner is not gone well. They're still a last place team, so maybe they're a team that maybe hits the reset button again. But they've got talent on this team. I noticed, and I will correct this. The last time that we played the Nationals, there was somebody in the comment section of our audio on Spotify who said that Alex Call was actually traded to the Dodgers. So my bad. Alex Call is not on this team. My bad. But, Keibert Ruiz has been a disappointing bat ever since signing that extension. And then you get to the bullpen, like we said, it has not been great. They traded away Kyle Finnegan. He's gone, pretty much seemed to be their only reliable reliever. This is a Nationals team that is not good, and they should sweep this series. I'll take 2 out of 3. I will take it. But again, still would like to see a sweep, because this is a Nationals team that has been done for months, but we've seen them dance around a lot. As for this final piece of who I'm looking for, I am just looking for that top three coming through when it matters in those final games. Like we said, playing those close games, because this is the bullpen you can do it against. Somebody mentioned in the chat earlier, we talked about it. They have struggled to score against bullpens late in games. This is the perfect bullpen that you can do that, and you can stack up some wins and put yourself in a lot better of a position. Because if they were to sweep this Nationals series, their magic number would automatically go down to 5, and then whatever losses of the opponents in that wild card race, they would be in striking distance of clinching, and they would put themselves in a really, really good spot. So hopefully that's what happens. Hopefully they're able to at least win this series, but I'm hoping for a sweep. I feel like I would be disappointed if they didn't sweep, but they've been in plenty of these situations. Game for War saying, I think that the Mets left their broom at some airport and since forgotten how to sweep. Yeah, probably. It's very possible because they've definitely struggled to do so. They've pulled out a few sweeps up this year, but not on a consistent basis, especially against these bottom-dwelling teams that they should be doing it against. They should be. So we'll see. The Mets have the table set for them right now. You've got 9 games left. And I think we're going to end it off here as first pitch, like I said, 7 o'clock. 7 o'clock. 7:10 to be exact. But again, the Mets are just going to have to continue to win. They can't be worrying about everything else, getting on in a technicality. But we'll see what happens. We will see what happens. Game for War asking, when was the Mets' last sweep? It was against the Phillies, I believe so, at the end of August. So it's definitely been a good 4-5 weeks since they've swept someone. So this would be nice if they were to able to do it. Either way, thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed the conversation. For those of you watching or listening on playback, you want to join the conversation in the future, make sure to turn on those post notifications, subscribe to the Mets Weekly YouTube channel, like the video, as Game for War is saying. That'd be greatly appreciated. When we go live, have those notifications on, like I just said. Make sure to follow us on X and on TikTok, Mets Weekly. You have the Mets Frankly post game after every single regular season game. Follow all of us individually, including my co-hosts that are not here today. And then finally, 9 games remaining. That's it. 9 games. They have to play the strongest baseball they have ever played. It's crunch time. No excuses, no ifs, ands, or buts. Let's go, Mets, and we will see you guys next.